Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live streaming. We are coming to you live from Unity Spiritual Center in Spokane, Washington, and we're glad you're here with us. Our mission here is inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world, but first we're transforming lives, and then we're inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world. And we want to start our time together by saying our opening affirmation. I'll say it once and then invite you to say it with me. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the Good. Together. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the Good. One presence, one power, one life living through and as each one of us. We have some news you can use. First of all, Reverend David McClure is starting a Zoom class called Creating a World that Works for All, based on the work of Sharif Abdullah. That starts on September 2nd and goes through till October, Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Check this week's e-news update to see how you can register for that. Also, we have a treat this morning. We have a short video done by Danica Buck, who is one of our former YOUers, is now graduated, and is working with the Uniteen Age group, and she has a little message for us.
All right, here we go.
Sound.
Sound? Any sound? Sort of sound. Kayla, what do we have? Yep.
Oh, hi! Didn't see you there. My name's Danica, formerly a YOUer, and now a Uniteen sponsor. Woo! My co-sponsors and I have been really missing having Sacred Sunday. So we've decided to do something about it. We're going to be contacting the families of the youth to see how best to make this happen. So if you are a family that has one of these youths, please email Jackie at the email on the screen with your updated contact information so we can contact you. We're hoping to have an online service with the youth sometime within the next month. So we hope to see you soon.
All right.
Thank you, Danica.
All right,
excited about that.
Yes. All right. Email Jackie Green. jgreen at unityspiritualcenter.org.
UnitySpokane.org.
That's right.
That'll get it there. Yes, with your updated information.
Okay.
So let's take some time now and go into our...
No,
let's not do that. We're going to listen to a song first.
Yeah.
We've got live streaming happening, right? Do we?
Yeah,
Yes.
we do.
We have a beautiful song for you this morning called Anastasia's Song by Karen Drucker. But I invite you to put any person in that slot and send your love to that person. The song sings about love, joy, peace, power, and peace and love again. I'm going to send this song out to my dear mom. So Sean, here we go.
Send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens. And send my joy over the mountains. I send my joy over the sea. I send my joy into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my power over the mountains. I send my power over the sea. I send my power into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my peace over the mountains. I send my peace over the sea. I send my peace into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. And it returns to me.
Thank you, Sean and Tawny, for that beautiful, beautiful song to lead us into meditation. I can't think of a better song for that. One of my favorites. So let's do that. Let's send some love to the rest of the world as we join together now. So I invite you to just settle into your seat wherever you find yourself geographically. Center yourself and feel yourself planted where you are. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your back against the chair wherever you are sitting, and feel yourself being supported in this moment as each one of us takes the time to gently set aside any of the cares or the worries or the activity of the day or what's yet to come. We just gently set all of that aside in order to become completely present, knowing we can pick it up again later if we choose. And so I invite you to begin to focus on your breath and allow your breath to become an anchor for you in this now moment. Just follow it in and out. And as you do, imagine breathing right into your heart. And if you want to put your hand on your heart, go ahead and do that to help you connect with your heart space. And now as you imagine breathing into your heart, bring into your mind's eye someone that you deeply love. Someone that when you just think about that person, your heart opens and warms with love, with gratitude. And allow that feeling of love to just begin to softly and gently fill your heart. Bring a smile to your face as you think about that person and what it is you love so much about them. let that love continue to emanate from within you as it radiates from your heart, as it grows and expands. Feel the expansiveness of this feeling of love and gratitude, and let it fill your body. Feel it blessing every cell of your body. And let it expand beyond your body. And now imagine sending this love from your heart to this person that you love so deeply. Just imagine from your heart to their heart. Feel your divine connection. And see their face lighting up in recognition of this healing power of God, divine love. And now continue breathing into the heart and allow it to expand even farther as it circles our planet. And it blesses all of those places that are where people are suffering, where people are hungry, where there is violence, illness, where people are grieving. Just feel the expansiveness of your heart as it grows even wider, as you become a channel, a vehicle for divine love to be beamed throughout this planet. We send our love over the mountains, over the seas, into the heavens. We know that there is no separation, that the oneness of God means that each one of us is connected at the source. And as we turn within to that divine source, as we allow it to move through us, as we become the presence of God in action, sharing the power of love on our planet, we know that we are part of the healing. That we become the presence of peace in action, that we bring the truth of who we are, the wholeness that we are, into every situation. Feel the value of that. Know that you are here to make a difference in our world. That spirit moves through and as each one of us, as we become the vehicle for its expression. And so we breathe into the heart once more, and we allow that divine love to just completely envelop our world. And we know the truth, that there is no separation, that as each heart opens to the truth and allows that truth to be expressed, we create an energetic field of healing and health and wholeness and oneness and divine love and peace. And we hold this vision of a world that works for all as we enter the silence together. God is our source. And for this truth, the truth that sets us free, we are grateful. And so it is. Amen.
All right, thank you for that. So this morning outside, we had a pretty good group this morning, and I began the service, my talk, with this question: how many of you are dealing with a difficult life situation right now? Raise your hand. And several people raised their hands, and I've done this before in church, and I typically ask the follow-up question: now point to where the difficulty is really. And as a humorous thing, I also write on the heels of that statement, as people are starting to point, I say, now don't point to your spouse, and everybody chuckles at that. But I noticed that Linda Tweedy, who is fairly close up front, said that was going like this: difficulty is here. And I thought that was very apropos for us to source where our discomfort really comes from. It comes from here. Now, interestingly enough, when a person is asked to identify themselves or point to themselves, they'll point here, me. And notice that they're pointing here instead of me. And so it's an interesting dichotomy. We have a real innate sense of what our essence is, who we really are, but yet, and at the same time attribute to all of our difficulty to what's going on up here. We possess the seeds of enlightenment in that simple realization often. So we could ask the question: where is our discomfort really in an uncomfortable situation? Or as my talk title implies, where is the uncontrollable circumstance really? Where is it uncontrollable really? And as we look to find the power in it, if so long as we don't source it outside of ourselves, so long as we say, well, the difficulty is really here, now we're in relationship with that dimension of ourself that we can bring into greater integrity, greater wholeness, greater healing. But we first have to recognize that part of the challenge is that we're conditioned to source our discomfort or source the difficulty or source our powerlessness over uncontrollable situations out there. And when we are given to that tendency, indeed that default way of being with whatever is happening, it's no wonder that we create a world that uses power and force to try to resolve all of the challenges and difficulties that we face. So I'm going to share a video from Charles Eisenstein, one of my favorite philosophers, and because he brings such a whole picture of what the possibilities are to any given issue, and so I just offer this movie as a way of setting the tone for what we will explore in the next few minutes.
Last year, several million children died of hunger. Yet no government has declared a state of emergency or asked that we radically alter our way of life to save them. Why, for that matter, are we not in a frenzy about averting nuclear Armageddon or ecological collapse? Let us ask why we are able to unify our collective will to stem this virus, but not to address other grave threats to humanity. The answer is revealing. Simply in the face of world hunger or ecological collapse, we as a society do not really know what to do. Our go-to crisis responses, all of which are some version of control, aren't very effective in addressing these conditions. Now, along comes a contagious epidemic, and finally we can spring into action. It is a crisis for which control works. Quarantines, lockdowns, isolation, hand washing, control of movement, control of information, control of our bodies. COVID-19 is a threat that we know how to meet. Today, most of our challenges no longer succumb to force. Our antibiotics and surgery fail to meet the surging health crises of autoimmunity, addiction, and obesity. Our guns and bombs, built to conquer armies, are useless to erase hatred abroad or keep domestic violence out of our homes. Our police and prisons cannot heal the breeding conditions of crime. Thus, we single out COVID-19 as a call to arms, reorganizing society as if for a war effort, while treating as normal the possibility of nuclear Armageddon, ecological collapse, and 5 million children starving. There is an alternative to the paradise of perfect control that our civilization has so long pursued. We can take advantage of this pause, this break in normal, to turn onto a path of reunion, of holism, of the repair of community, and the rejoining of the web of life. COVID-19 is showing us that when humanity is united in common cause, phenomenally rapid change is possible. What world shall we create? Do we double down on protecting the separate self? Or do we accept the invitation into a world where all of us are in this together? What should we do about the homeless? What should we do about the people in prisons? What should we do about the unemployed? What about all the hotel maids, the Uber drivers, the plumbers, the janitors, and the bus drivers, and the cashiers who cannot work from home? How do we protect those susceptible to COVID invites us into how do we care for vulnerable people in general? For a long time, we as a collective have stood helpless in the face of an ever-sickening society. We have been stuck in these systems and the patterns that cause them. Now, COVID has given us a reset. As COVID stirs our compassion, more and more of us realize that we don't want to go back to a normal so sorely lacking it. We have the opportunity now to forge a new, more compassionate normal. That is the impulse that stirs in us. It is saying, let's get serious about taking care of each other. Let's remember how precious we all are and how precious life is. Let's take inventory of our civilization, strip it down to its studs, and see if we can build one more beautiful.
A more beautiful world that our heart knows is possible. So it could be said that if COVID-19 is a reset, it's certainly setting us up for experiencing what is possible when we really recognize that no one on the planet is able to escape what could be the impact of a cataclysmic evolutionary catalyst or an event such as what we're experiencing now. And as we think about all the ways in which we have struggled, as Charles Eisenstein says, to affect the ills of this world, we have found it impossible to really manage because our whole mentality for how to fix what's broken is by force. It's by control. It's by making something out there be different, as opposed to looking at the seeds or the cause, the source of what creates a world that only works for a handful of people. And it could be said that we've asked for these times, especially us in New Thought, knowing that what needs to happen is a new paradigm, a new evolutionary milestone that our human family occupies, but we can have all the platitudes and principles that we want to kind of hope for that eventuality, and yet at the same time find ourselves powerlessness in the face of the uncontrollable, the discomfort, the uncomfortable, as well as whatever looks and feels against us. So we have a choice. We have a choice of relating to this dynamic, these experiences, this energy from our head or from our heart. And we have an opportunity to practice or be in the effort to extricate ourselves from the patterns that have us modulated to the values and concerns and cares of this world, as opposed to focus on what needs to happen to bring this world into a kind of collective unity, a collective wholeness that acknowledges we're all in this together. And the interesting thing about this movie, in the sense that how is it possible that COVID-19 could pull us all in together? Well, because no one's not affected by this. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You cannot not have the virus affect you. So there's no way to buy ourselves out of this problem. And therefore, the only option we have is by force. And so we create a war on the COVID-19, just like all the other wars that we have kind of found ourselves a part of, because that's all we know how to do. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, says this in one of his writings. He says, if the superconscious or the Christ mind or that dimension of us that operates from our own sense of wholeness and worth, if that's not developed, if that's not activated, if that's not brought into expression, we will destroy one another in the insane warring for the fleeting things of this world. So the things that we need or want, we have to go to war in order to make it happen. I mean, just think about all the wars that we've been experiencing in our own lifetime. I mean, in addition to the fact that America has only been war-free in its entire history for a few decades. There's always been some aspect of our social system engaged in warding off something out there. And then when we think about the war on crime, the war on drugs, the war on poverty, we don't have anything else in our toolbox but to try to kill what's against us or force something into submission. And as Charles Eisenstein points out, this habitual effort to try to make something go away or make something happen is destroying us, literally, destroying us and the planet. So Jane and I have a relationship with Ken Wilber. We have an occasion to meet with him in his apartment in Denver, Colorado. Actually, he has a whole floor of this huge tower. Pretty cool. And as we talk about the evolutionary process, it's helpful for us to understand, well, where are we evolving into? What are we evolving into? Greg Braden and Deepak Chopra talk about the new human, the new species of humanity that's emerging, that's literally being created because our DNA is changing. We are literally becoming different creatures, different beings on this planet. But in terms of looking at evolution and how social systems evolve, Jane has talked about in her Evolving Paradigms program, as well as in her talks, how different levels of development give us access to different dimensions that inform our perception and meaning making. And when we're at lower levels, then we're more driven by external circumstances. But when we attain higher levels of understanding, of development, then we're more holistic and we are less reactive. And there's a differentiation between first tier and second tier in terms of development. First tier are often called subsistence levels of being. In other words, we subsist in this dimension of our way of being with what's happening in our life. External circumstances have to be a certain way in order for us to feel safe and okay. And so how much of your time and energy is in dealing with issues of your own safety and well-being? And if you can see how that's an area that occupies a good portion of one's life, then you can see that you're centered in first tier, where most of the world is. When we're unconscious, when we're asleep to our own true nature, we're in first tier. We have to have external conditions be a certain way in order for us to feel safe and okay. But second tier is developmentally different. It's called being levels. It matters not what's happening in the outer. The crucial point is, am I in integrity with who and what I've come here to be with what I'm having? And when we come from that context for how we're being in our life, our evolutionary process that shifts us into that dimension now enables us to occupy a place where our consciousness contributes to the unfolding of this evolutionary process that's bringing us into a new paradigm of living, a new paradigm of being. But part of the challenge is that we have to recognize that we're trapped in the same systemic dynamics that the rest of the world is caught up in. It's our human nature now to kind of have someone or something against us as an explanation of our own internal discomfort, as opposed to recognize the mechanism of our self, our body-mind dynamic, and recognize what we do to help create the very circumstances that we want to be rid of. And so let us look at the different dimensions that are at work when we're in a triggering moment, because that's where we tend to fall deeper into our reactive behaviors, and therefore into a greater sense of being asleep unto our own capacity to matter and to make a difference. Hang on a second, I'm tangled up in my own cord. Oh no. Okay, here we go. Okay, so all of us can relate to being in a triggering moment and knowing that a reactive pattern has created even more disconnect, more separation, and therefore some karma that we have to take ownership of. But as we recognize that the reactive nature of us is a conditioned aspect of ourselves, then we need to see that conditioned aspect in its various operational aspects happening within ourselves. So I want to explain the underlying dynamics associated with the triggering moment. I call this the triggering moment cascade. So it begins with having a perceived threat. In other words, we see something out there that some part of us internalizes as against us. And that part that internalizes that is the amygdala. And so the amygdala sounds the alarm, the first moment that we sense something or someone is against us. And then what happens next is the thalamus sends a signal to wake up the brainstem. And then after that, the brainstem sends neuroepinephrine throughout the brain. And then that's a neurotransmitter. And then the sympathetic nervous system signals the organs and muscles to get ready to fight or to flee. And then the hypothalamus prompts the pituitary. And then the pituitary prompts the adrenals to release cortisol and adrenaline, the stress hormones. And all of this takes place in less than 2 seconds. In 2 seconds, our emotional state is hijacked. And that happens in the blink of an eye. And so it's important for us to recognize, well, we have to intervene if we're to kind of prevent this cascade to continue to keep us engaged in trying to deal with the difficulty or the discomfort or the uncontrollable. It becomes a futile effort because it's coming from a place of us already being in a heightened state where we can't really use our heart. We're all in the head here. Well, there's a reactive cascade that we should talk about because it really goes to understanding the psychological phenomena associated with the brain dynamic, what happens in the nervous system. So we have that perceived threat, and then we have some depleting sensation or emotion or uncomfortable feelings. But here's what happens next, and that is we create a story. And just think for a moment, the last time you felt some kind of discomfort, someone judged you and you got touched with a little sense of your own inadequacy. Instantly we create a story, and the story then becomes a way in which we can distance ourselves from actually feeling the uncomfortable moment. And here's the interesting thing: if we could actually feel the uncomfortable moment completely, it would arise and pass away within 90 seconds. However, because we instantly go to making a story around what we're feeling, that causes our entire self system to begin to do the next thing, and that's look for evidence that corroborates that story that we're making up about what's happening. And so we gather evidence, and in that process we can also experience a negative internal dialogue, self-talk, where we're now in the height of engaging that story, and then we are actually amplifying the feelings that are associated with the original triggering moment. And then ultimately, we source that discomfort out there. And within 2 seconds, guess what? We can have someone or something the matter with us. And we do that all the time. And yet we don't know that that's a systemic dimension of our self system. We don't know that that's just doing it and running us. And we just feel the discomfort, and then we go out and look for all the evidence. We try to enact something out there that can change our internal state. And that's backwards. And we have to recover from that dynamic. And so David White, he has a great quote that Jane passed along to me. He said, "We stick to the wrong thing quite often." And that means basically we make matter what's more often the wrong thing. Not because it will come to fruition by further effort, but because we cannot let go of the way we have decided to tell our story. And as we think about that, just think about how embedded we are in our story, how attached we are with our story. And just imagine if you're living in the story of you being a victim and you have someone in your life that's trying to coax you out of that story, there's resistance. I mean, I've experienced that resistance in my own life and many times. And so our story then becomes an obstacle that we have to negotiate if we're to get into doing that deeper work that we must proceed to do. And so I want to continue with this reactive cascade because there's more to the story. And so when we have someone or something the matter with us, it's typically associated with the myth, messages, and beliefs that are operating unconsciously in us. I'm a disappointment. I'm not good enough. I'm inadequate. Something's wrong with me. In any rate, that produces associated corresponding depleting feelings or emotions. And that informs how we make meaning. If I'm believing that what I have is insufficient to me manage what my financial obligations are, I'm going to use those feelings of inadequacy and not enough to make meaning about myself and what's happening in the outer. And as I continue in that regard, then I create the kind of coping strategies associated with my effort to mitigate the discomfort that I'm feeling in relationship to what I'm having. And in that regard, then we create our own experience of reality. It has been generated by the internal dynamic of how we've been relating to what's happening in our life. And we have to recognize that our self system does that automatically without any intervention from us until we wake up, until we have a mind to begin to recognize, okay, this is the circuitry that runs me. Now how can I use this circuitry to really free me from the conditions that support my feeling powerless in the presence of discomfort, difficulty, or uncontrollable life situations? Well, if I recognize that my habitual self-system reconditions those very beliefs and feelings that I'm trying to free myself from, then I have to break the cycle someplace. And so I break the cycle by recognizing who I've come here to be. And I allow that to inform the cascade. So when I come from who I come here to be, I produce renewing feelings and emotions. And those renewing feelings and emotions inform the way I make meaning and the way in which I deal with what's happening and manage what's going on, and therefore create my experience of reality. And just that shift from being in a state of separation, a state of division or polarization within myself as well as in my relationship to the world, to recognize, no, I've come here to be and to accomplish something that's consistent with my essence, my purpose, and it makes a difference. It matters that I show up, and it matters that I come from a context that we're all in this together. We all matter. All right, so Joe Dispenza, I really like his teachings because it has helped me understand my self system. It has helped me understand what it is that I need to do in order to affect a shift or a transformation. I don't have to kind of wonder what I should be working on. I always have a very clear understanding that it boils down to my state. And most of us do not have the capacity or dominion over one's state. We believe that our state of being arises out of what's happening out there. That's first tier. But when we recognize that our state of being is something that is generated from within, then we can practice a state of being that works for us, and therefore informs the self system that implements the state that we're becoming or that we're being. And so Dr. Joe says, thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. So when our thoughts and feelings are aligned, we're in a state. Think of it as an attitude. And so we can have a bad attitude or be in a state of separation or a state of anxiety or a state of feeling lost or separate or apart. And then that informs how we manage the moment. Or we can be in a state of being that recognizes our own sense of worth and value, and that the moment is here to bring us into a process of unleashing who we are and who we've come here to be. When we know that this is the dynamic that is fostering us, then we know that our work is to get a state change, to have a state change. Because our state of being determines how we're having our life. And so if I recognize that I'm in a state that does not support me having my life as if it's for me, then I have to change my state. My state is the context for how I'm having my life. And no one's going to do that for me. I have to do that myself. So, Dr. Joe also says this, that when you practice wholeness as a state of being enough times, it becomes your state of being, and that's when the magic really starts to happen. One of the things that I found to be true, and that is that I can be in an uncomfortable situation, being triggered, but I can very quickly recognize that, what's happening right now is what's being touched in me is this part of me that is not connected to my own sense of well-being and worth. And when I recognize that, when I see that that is what's really going on, I can relax about what's happening out there. I can even be in gratitude for the situation because it has exposed a place in my own consciousness that has been running me without my permission, that has not been healthy or be necessarily what is best for me or for the people that are near and dear to me. And so as I recognize that my discomfort is connected to a limiting belief, and as I give the little Gary inside of me compassion for the difficulty it must be to live in the belief that one doesn't have power or one can't control outer circumstances, but yet at the same time recognize that the other side of it is that I've come here to be unto my own life source, the one, that which brings into this world that is something that's necessary and good that only I can bring. And I have to value myself. I have to value that I matter because I don't necessarily always have that evidence outside of myself. So that's something that we have to take on ourselves. So I want to end here now with talking about a story, a life situation that I had deemed uncontrollable, as well as uncomfortable, as well as difficult. It would fit all those three things. And it happened earlier this week, and I was awaiting a package to be delivered by UPS, and I could monitor in real time the location of the UPS truck. They have that as technology now. And I can even wave at my driver, not necessarily if he could see me, but I could see where he was, or she, pardon me. But the idea was, as I was anticipating a delivery. And as it got closer to our house, I could see, oh, it's a mile away. I was wanting to run an errand, but I didn't want to necessarily leave without being there for the driver, as well as we live on a one-way, 1 mile road. And if two vehicles are going up or down together, they'll have to negotiate how to get around each other. Now, there are several turnouts, but you could be in an inconvenient place and there'd be no turnout, and someone would have to back up. And it's not necessarily something that a truck driver with a big truck would necessarily welcome, is venturing that way. So it has been a challenge to get people to drive up to our place to have deliveries and things because of this issue. But nonetheless, we had been pleasantly surprised that FedEx found us, UPS found us, and we were starting to receive deliveries. We were actually someplace. You couldn't find us on GPS yet, but FedEx and UPS could. And so we were validated that we were actually someplace in the world. Anyway, so as I was watching the delivery truck, all of a sudden I got this message saying, "Gary, your package is delivered." And I go, "What? No way. I mean, I'm here. No truck came up. No delivery was made. And there was no indication as to where the package was." So I called UPS and asked, and she said, "Well, it's delivered." I said, "Where is it?" And I said, "It says other, is left at other. What does other mean?" And so she said, "Well, he probably didn't want to drive up the hill, and so he left it at your mailboxes." Now, they're not supposed to put it in the mailbox because it's United States Postal Service. So UPS has to just leave it there. And instantly I reacted because ever since we first moved in, we've had parcels taken from our mailbox. And so in talking to the post office, they had us have them hold all parcels so that we wouldn't lose anything. And I freaked out in a sense that knowing that the box was just left at the mailboxes, no way that that's still going to be there. I mean, it's highly likely that if it was in the mailbox, it would be gone, much less left outside. So I drive down the hill and look at the mailboxes, and there's nothing there. And I thought, oh, someone's taken it. But then I go into the mailbox, and there's our mail, and then I look inside, and there's the package. And I thought to myself, oh, wow, thank God he's left it in the package. And then I start to feeling a little bit sorry. I was directing some anxiety towards myself that I had treated the person who is trying to resolve my issue over the phone so rudely, and recognized that I had also reacted to her comment that the driver probably didn't want to drive up that road, thinking to myself, well, why wouldn't he drive up the road? Everything else is driven up that road. My God, our house was driven up that road. Certainly the UPS driver can drive up the road and deliver us the package, or at least tell me where the package is, just don't say package is delivered. So anyway, I woke up in that moment, in that time. It takes a while sometimes to wake up, but when you wake up, there's something to do. I had to recognize that I had projected my fear and anxiety by my own anxiety about driving up this road onto the driver. I was making my driver wrong for something that I was afraid to do. That was the first thing that I had to take back. I also had to take back how I treated the person who was trying to resolve my issue, and to make amends, which I did, as well as gave this person a recommendation, a survey afterward followed the call, and I gave that person the best praise that I could. But the point being is that I was able to disarm the dynamic of what was being generated in that moment of not recognizing that I was living in my own self-imposed dynamic. And once I recognized and shifted into my heart, gave my younger self compassion and made amends to the folks that were responsible for delivering the package, I got guidance to go down and meet with the people at the UPS station and ask them for help. just surrendered to. How can we work this thing out? And we came up with a plan, and it was very easy. And for instance, like, well, if the driver is afraid of driving up, he'll give you a call, and he'll let you know it's in the mailbox, or he'll wait for you. You can drive down the hill and pick it up. Wow, that was easy. So the point being is that when we recognize that a situation out there is a portal to resolving some internal disconnect inside, then we can be with the experience differently, even though the experience contains the same depleting emotions, the same stories that come forth. We can override that circuitry by recognizing the dynamic. We can recognize that we're in a process. We're engaged in the story. We're not feeling our feelings. And the moment that we can get in touch with absolutely feeling our feelings and refrain from creating a story around it, we can feel what that discomfort's connected to. And then we can begin to reparent that part of ourself that is in that isolation. And then we can bring forth an authentic action that meets the need in the outer, as well as give ourselves a greater sense of knowing our own worth and knowing that our presence matters. So that's about all I got for right now. Let's unpack this a little bit more. How about that?
Yes, let's take it to heart, because what you're describing really is moving to the heart from the head. That's what I got from it, that when I'm feeling that sense of powerlessness, and I would say that's one of my triggers, is when I feel like I'm powerless about this, there's nothing I can do, when it's out of my control, that's when I will definitely get triggered. And then when I can stop myself like that and realize this is in my head, what's my heart tell me? The heart prompts, go and talk to them, go down and you can figure this out. And so it occurred to me as you were telling your story, and we started at this huge, the mega experience, and take it down to the micro, the macro to the micro. And what that tells me is that this works, whether it's some small triggering moment you've had in your life that actually can take you to an understanding of this sense of powerlessness that's much more than we thought. Right at the beginning, I'm just angry because they're not taking my, bringing my package. When you really unpack it and you get this sense of being powerless, that's huge. And we can, take that back and realize that I can do something about it. I do have some power here. So for me, it's like this works whether we're dealing with the day-to-day, little paper cut triggers, or this huge thing that we're dealing with as a human family right now, that it's the same work.
Right, it is. Yes, definitely. And then that's I think part of the importance is that we can't fail to do that inner work. And while it may be more fun to do the things in the outer, but it's really more substantial and consequential when we ultimately address the source, be aligned with the source of things.
Right, because our work is to be the presence of peace, no matter what is happening. And that when we're in that state, we open up the portal to source. There's a communication that can happen there. There's guidance that can prompt us to the next step. And of course, that's not all that we do. We certainly want to take some outer actions. But if we're taking those outer actions from a triggered place, or from a place where we have not resolved this, then it doesn't, it's just warring, what is it, insane warring with the fleeting outer stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and move into our next thing.
Let's do that, shall we? And that is...
Wait a minute, I want to do this in honor of Dr. Jim.
Yeah, there we go.
And Lisa Zuber.
And Lisa Zuber, yes. Lisa Zuber, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so we want to right now celebrate abundance together, and to give thanks for all of you who are continuing to support Unity Spiritual Center during this time. It's a difficult time for all of us, and we appreciate that. We appreciate the support that is ongoing for us. And so let's say together our love offering blessing as we really bless that support. I know that my giving blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give and receive. I give thanks for the abundance that is mine to share. And we do give thanks for that.
All right.
So, we look forward to seeing you on the Zoom meet and greet.
That's next,
Please join us if you can in that way. We can see each other without masks. That's really important to me right now because everybody I see is, I'm seeing half a face. And I would love to see your smiles and your expressiveness on the Zoom meet and greet if you can be there.
All right, well, I think we're going to go out with another song from Sean and Tanya.
Another song from our beloved music directors. Do you want this?
Well, here's a song that goes perfectly with our meditation this morning and with our message from Dr. Gary. Living in an intention of peace, living and knowing that you live with the power to love. And this is an original song I wrote just a few years back and goes like this. It's called The Power to Love. I can see deep within your eyes a soul burning so brightly, a spirit learning to rise. And I'm amazed to feel this love we all can see, a life you share for others, the hope that sets us free. And all these gifts you shared so selflessly are there in front of us and endlessly. You've got the power to live, you've got the power to love, you've got the power to live, you've got the power from above, you've got the power to give, you've got the power from above, you've got the power within, you've got the power of love. I can feel the love you always share. I can feel the warmth, I can feel the touch, I can feel the care. I know this love is always free, to help me to feel, to help me to hear, to help me to touch, to help me to see. And all these gifts you've shared so selflessly are there in front of us and endlessly. You've got the power to live, you've got power to love, you've got the power to live, you've got the power from above, you've got a power to give, you've got a power from above, you've got the power within, you've got the power of love. You've got a power to give, you've got the power from above, and you've got the power within, you've got the power